Hello and welcome to Inside Modular, the podcast of commercial modular construction, brought to you by the Modular Building Institute. Today's episode is also brought to you by the Offsite Construction Expo, sponsored by the Modular Building Institute. Visit offsiteconstructionexpo.com today to join industry speakers, exhibitors, and attendees for the next virtual expo of 2020, this time aimed at the East Coast and Mid-Atlantic regions on November 18th. Now anyone can attend for only $199. Register today at offsiteconstructionexpo.com. Welcome everyone, my name is John McMullen and I'm the Marketing Director here at MBI. Today I'm joined by Rhys Kane and Brock Elliot from Horizon North. Rhys and Brock are here to talk about the rapid rise in the need for affordable housing across Canada and how Horizon North is meeting that demand. Rhys and Brock, thanks for calling in today.
Pleasure, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So, tell me about yourselves. Rhys, why don't you start?
Hey, so I'm Rhys Kane. I'm the sales director here at Horizon North. I'm based in Calgary in Western Canada, and I focus on projects, multi-unit, multi-story housing projects, hotels, senior student workforce housing type projects here in Western Canada and Central and Western U.S.
Very good. And Brock?
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks for having us here today. My name is Brock Elliot. I'm the Director of Projects for Horizon North. So in my role here, I oversee both our project management and construction departments. I'm actually based in Kamloops, British Columbia, where we have our most large-scale manufacturing facility right on our doorstep here.
So, Brock, I'll stay with you. How did you get into modular construction?
Yeah, I've been almost exclusively in the modular industry in my career. From university, I went to work with a company at the time. It was called Northern Trailer here in Kamloops, British Columbia, who predominantly provided modules for oil sands and mining and more kind of industrial focus at that point in time. Northern Trailer was subsequently purchased by Horizon North. So I went to work with Northern Trailer from kind of my point of graduation at university, and I've been here ever since. It just transformed into Horizon North and continued to grow, and we continued to kind of change the product lines that were going through our manufacturing facility. So I was almost born into it after university.
Nice. And Rhys, how about you?
So I've been in modular for about 7 years now. Originally, I joined a company. It was an interesting role. The company was a new startup looking to utilize steel shipping containers for modular construction projects. So it was a really interesting process using steel modular and the repurposing of shipping containers, which I found fascinating. So that was my sort of entry into the industry, and got involved with MBI and have subsequently had experience with some smaller scale wood frame manufacturing company and now with the big guys here at Horizon North for the last year or so. So it's been a fascinating time. I think the industry is super exciting and a great place to be right now, and poised for some interesting years ahead.
Oh, it definitely is. It definitely is. How about Horizon North itself? You guys have been growing, particularly with the recent acquisition of NRB and some other companies. How did the company find itself in the position it's in today?
Yeah, it's an interesting story, actually, and I think Brock sort of touched on it before, where here in Alberta, there's a big oil and gas industry, and the manufacturing facilities were originally set up to provide workforce camp-style infrastructure for that industry and mining and forestry. So we have a really good backbone of manufacturing and building modules. A few years ago, the leadership, Rod Graham and Joe Kiss, really recognized the opportunity within modular as sort of that increasing interest in using modular for multi-story housing and hospitality projects. So, Rod Graham really spearheaded that growth, and the Modular Solutions division was born, say 5-6 years ago here at Horizon North, and has grown significantly since. The last couple of years, obviously you mentioned the NRB acquisition out east, which gives us a pan-Canadian presence with 2 factories in the west and 1 in the east, with a Calgary plant too. And then, in the last sort of this year, there's also been a merger with Dexterra. So it's an even bigger company offering different key services, including modular solutions, and also workforce accommodations and forestry and facilities management. So it's an interesting time, and Horizon North is extremely committed to the modular industry with NRB. NRB is the modular side of the business, and, not just growing the company, but also growing the industry. So.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that both Horizon North and NRB have been quite active in the affordable housing market. That all began, I think, in Vancouver. Can you talk a little bit about that city's modular program and how that served as a jumping-off point for the company?
Yeah, sure. I'll take that one on, John. So, essentially, I'll talk a little bit about Horizon North's involvement as the design builder. So Horizon North was awarded the design-build contract for the project was called 220 Terminal through a competitive tender process in late 2016. This project was the first temporary modular housing project of its kind in BC. The intent was to be a pilot project, and kind of any subsequent work that would be similar to this pilot project would be fully dependent on the successful execution of this project. So it was a 3-story modular housing facility comprised of about 40 modules right downtown Vancouver. We had roughly a 6-month contract to completion timeline and a little less than 3 months from the point of starting our foundation to the point of having the building ready for occupancy on site. The site was quite challenging. It had some contamination issues, and so we had to come up with some real creative ways to put the building on the site and still comply with building code. So we came up with some ideas like a relocatable foundation system and other relocatable components to overcome that. So anyways, through all of these challenges, the project was successfully turned over in February 2017. At the time, the initiative was essentially to solve homelessness, and that initiative was one from the mayor at the time, Gregor Robertson. So the pilot project was a success, and it was a proven concept at that point in time. And Gregor Robertson kind of carried on that as a item on his political agenda from there going forward.
That's really cool. The program, I think, then became the basis for a modular platform across British Columbia through BC Housing. Can you talk a little bit about that program and some of the work you did for it?
Yeah, you bet. So since the successful completion of the pilot project, we did get, the province got a fair amount of traction on their modular housing program altogether. So since that completion in early 2017, Horizon North has successfully completed over 40 similar projects throughout British Columbia, and I really mean throughout British Columbia. We've completed projects in Vancouver Island, downtown Vancouver, Kamloops, Kelowna, Grand Forks, Dawson Creek, really east, south, west, north, you name it. We've completed these modular projects throughout BC. They range from a 2-story or a 1-story, 2-story, 3-story, 4-story, and up to a 5-story building. So 40 of them to date. And kind of over the course of these 40 buildings, the design of the building has been progressively elaborated, considering feedback from the operators, clients, and municipalities as well. So the buildings have become, more efficient in terms of better for our manufacturing, better for the end user and the operator, and also just over the years, much more energy efficient with the implementation of step code requirements here in British Columbia.
It sounds like you guys have been busy. I know modular affordable housing has become a hot topic all over Canada. I know the CMHC recently released their Rapid Housing Initiative, and you guys work all over. So tell me what Horizon North is doing in Toronto now.
Yeah, so as Rhys mentioned, NRB, our subsidiary in Ontario, was awarded 2 design-build modular projects, and essentially they're piggybacking off of almost exactly what was done in the city of Vancouver and the province of British Columbia, which made Horizon North and NRB the perfect supplier or design builder for these projects, given that we've been there and we've done it. So we essentially took what had been done in Vancouver, conformed it to Ontario Building Code and the requests of the City of Toronto and the operator and the end users. So we are actively working on 2 projects there. One is actually being craned this week. It's a 3-story supportive housing facility or affordable housing facility at 11 Macy in Toronto. And the other one's still in our manufacturing facility in Grimsby, Ontario. So they are also pilot projects. We're certainly hopeful that we see more of them, but heavily dependent on the successful execution of these 2 jobs. And so far they've been extremely successful, and we've had great partners in the City of Toronto and Create TO and the City Real Estate Management Division. It's been really enjoyable. So proven concept in BC, bring it to Toronto and prove it there is really what's going on.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. What can you tell me about the modular buildings themselves? What is it about their design and construction that makes them really ideal for affordable housing?
Yeah, it's specifically the modular component that makes them ideal. I mean, there's a rapid component to to the construction, to the requirement. And the government's expectation, or the city's expectation in this case, is that they are built rapidly. So with modular construction, we can fabricate off-site while we're completing on-site work, such as the civil and foundation, saving months on the schedule. So, what is really beneficial about the design and construction is that they're modular. You can complete these condensed timeframes that are required to satisfy, our end user, and hopefully get some traction and more rapidly resolve the affordable housing crisis.
Mm-hmm. And what's the?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Rhys, I cut you off there.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in there, John. I mean, in terms of what we've created, it's very much a repetitive, scalable approach, which works very well for this, this type of project. So, there's a proven baseline design, standardized modules, and it's sort of a suite library. So no matter where we're building, we have those templates. We can quickly design something, and it's the same every time, for the factory in terms of, what the factory requires for those economies of scale and the fast track production. We've done a lot of work to really get the design nailed down. So, we're creating really good, high quality projects. These feel like homes. We're putting a lot of work into the way that they feel and, the way that they look. So it's a great program, and affordable supportive housing, in general is a really good fit for modular because of the scalable approach and the repetition through the building. So
what's the reaction been to these buildings in the communities where you've built them?
Yeah, I can kind of speak to that from the aspect of the design builder. I mean, typically the client upstream of us is the one that handles the community consultation and would get that kind of feedback. But I mean, it's been fairly positive from our perspective. People are very happy to see how quickly this can be completed on site and how minimal the disruption actually is with modular construction vs stick-built construction. We're on site less, there's not all the material deliveries that you'd see for a typical conventional construction site. So they've been very happy to, know that they're only sitting beside a construction site for 3 to 4 months, as opposed to what might typically be somewhere upwards of 12 months. So the method of construction itself is very, very positively received because it is minimal disruption.
Yeah, there's a few sort of tactics that Horizon North employed. One of them is that we typically build a modular show suite that's transported to the community prior to construction. It's totally complete with the interior fit and finish, so that people can go and look through, and there's lots of community consultation. That's a really effective process. And then also a lot of the developments that we've done in Vancouver have been typically limited to around 50 units. So it limits, sort of the number into the community, because, you will face NIMBYism in the different cities.
Mm-hmm.
The conditions in Vancouver are very similar to, lots of cities across North America. So I think that's an important part. I mean, BC Housing, if you look on their website, they did a survey, and I could just read, just quote a couple of things off there, but 94% of residents remained housed at their modular supportive housing building 6 months after moving into their units. And 84% of survey respondents reported improvements to their overall well-being. So overall, very, very successful projects and well received in the community.
Definitely. And speaking of other cities in North America, Rhys, in my last interview, I talked with R.C. Alley. He's at AO Architects about a project you guys are working on for the city of Los Angeles. I was wondering what you could tell me about that project and how does it relate to what you're doing in Canada?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, in terms of our experience in BC, it's very, very well recognized, and it's a very good model for the province, and has been very successful. When we're looking at those conditions in the different cities, Denver, Salt Lake, Seattle, into California and LA, they have the same issues with, construction schedules, municipal approval timelines, cost of construction, access to trades, and effectively getting these projects built in a timely and cost-effective fashion. So as we look south of the border and into these different areas, we want to bring our experience, but we don't want to just say, hey, this is what we've done. Do you want to take it? We want to really look at those conditions and work with local architects, local developers and not-for-profits, and understand what their requirements are specifically, and then try and bring our experience to the table, the lessons learned we've had over the couple of thousand units we've built over the last year or so, to try and develop, projects and programs within the different cities. So I think LA is a great example, working with RC and the AO team to really, we've identified a site, and we're looking at, the ways that we can fast track because if there's a city in the U.S. that has a serious homeless housing issue, it is down there. So we'd love, we're really starting to do some more work. I mean, Brock mentioned what we've done in Toronto. Toronto is one of the largest, fastest growing cities. So, they're starting to take it and do it. So it's a really good showcase. So I'd encourage anyone listening into the podcast to take, sort of see what's happening. There's lots of media around it, and, talk to us about how we can help bring that program into the specific city that you are looking at.
And how about other cities in North America? What can be done to remove barriers and implement similar programs for affordable housing?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think Brock sort of talked about it earlier in the sense that, Horizon North, NRB, Modular, we're the builder. The modular industry, we're part of the modular industry. And what we need to do is step up when the city puts out that initiative. So in Vancouver, the mayor was very active and wanted to find ways to solve the homeless crisis. BC Housing, which is the provincial authority that provides, the housing and that distributes the funding, they create the program. And what Horizon North is gives a credible and viable option to help deliver that program. So as cities and, across North America really start to look at it, and the MBI is doing some wonderful things to promote, to help promote the industry, and there's lots of other companies doing it. There needs to be, the modular industry needs to be recognized as a viable solution. We need to be credible. We need to have, facilities available that can, so that there's competition in the market, and we can all sort of standardize and build similar products, right? It's not the Wild West where everyone's sort of doing it differently. There's lots of standardization and repeatability within the industry. So, yeah, I think that's how I see it.
Brock, I'll turn to you for a second. What does 2021 look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we're just excited about the trajectory of the modular industry. I mean, we've seen it continue to evolve from, we talked about it here today, from a pilot project in Vancouver to over 40 buildings alone in British Columbia to the pilot projects that we're completing in Toronto. So we've just continued to see it evolve and the trajectory go up and up, and it's exciting. So, I mean, 2021 is hopefully us capitalizing off of that trajectory and continuing to expand the areas in which we work. And in particular, we have a significant interest down in the States and bringing a similar product and similar philosophy down there. So, we're hopeful that the trajectory continues. I'm sure it will. And we're looking to capitalize off of that.
Thank you both. I really appreciate your time today. This was a relatively speedy interview, but it sounds like you guys have a lot of resources and knowledge available. I know the issue of affordable housing isn't going anywhere, but it sounds like there's big things happening in Canada. So I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
Thanks, John. Our pleasure.
My name is John McMullen, and this has been another episode of Inside Modular, the podcast of commercial modular construction. Until next time.